Alrighty. Hola. It's 7 o'clock, y'all. What's going on? How are you today? I'm Heather. Let me know if y'all can hear me, okay? I do my sound check and everything beforehand, but y'all know technology has a way with doing what it wants to do, especially when we don't want it to do it. So let me know if you can hear me and all that jazz. How y'all doing today? Thank you for joining me. Give it a couple of minutes here for people to join if they're going to do that today. I think today is a really good topic. We're going to be talking a little bit about the mental health illness of depression. One that I would say, well versed to talk about, and have at some point suffered from it. So I think it's important we talk about it because, it's a lot going on. And sometimes the depression does not look like what we think it should look like. And given that there's so much grief and there's so much loss and so much going on, a lot of trauma, and I think we're being exposed to it more so than ever. I think it's super duper important that we just kind of talk about it. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that I cover this in a way where you don't want to have a drink when you're done, because that's not my goal. My goal is always to present information and kind of do it in my Marissanism. Marissa is, that? I call it Marissaness. Of Marissanism. Whatever your name is, add ism to it, and that's your personality. That's like your idiosyncrasies and the essence of who you are. And so that's what I call it. So that's what I'm going to try to do. Hey, Stacey Williams Brown. Hey, love. Thank you for joining. And I don't see anybody else. I don't know if you're on here yet, but hopefully you'll hop on. Now, here's the thing. If depression isn't your thing, or you like, not my cup of tea, I would say send it, share it to somebody on your page, at least on your page, because I can guarantee you at least about 5,000 friends, somebody is experiencing it just from your friends on Facebook, let alone maybe your circle around you. And hey, Julian. And so maybe somebody is experiencing it. So, depression, there's no really one way to kind of describe it. I think it's a matter of a combination of certain factors. Sometimes it has to do with a traumatic event that happens, and whatever that may mean to you. I do know that a lot of people suffer in silence with it because, it's like when you're hurt or you're injured, you can see it on the outside. So say, for instance, I stub my toe, break my leg, break an arm, something happens to my face, and you're going to see it physically because you can tangibly touch it. But with depression, it's not something that you can necessarily see. So people are kind of carrying it and are experiencing it, and they're not necessarily able sometimes to articulate. Thank you for following me. They're not able to articulate what it is or what they think it may be. And oddly enough, oftentimes you're going to have people who are close to you that may see you, you change, your temperament change, your ability to be around people, your ability to want to reach out. You may become secluded. Your thinking may become dark. Some people, it doesn't necessarily look like that. It's not very solemn and melancholy. Some people experience it in rage instead of sadness. Some people are bitter and they lash out and they're irritated. And so I think it's important that we just kind of talk about that. Y'all put some stuff in there because it could be somebody that is in your space that has necessarily pulled back from, hanging out with people or even communication. They may be talking where they sound very solemn and everything is kind of doom and gloom. And, when it's in those times as a person of, that are close to people like that, it's hard to discern whether or not that person is just, in a space where they're just being, having a pity party, some people may assume, or if they're really in a space where, they're struggling with depression. And I can tell you for myself, I have experienced it, and It was difficult because I'm such an overachiever in a way that I was upset that I was even upset. I know that sounds crazy, but you got a lot of people, and let me talk to you strong people. I think we all have some elements of strong, but we have a lot of people who are displaying incredible amounts of strength on the outside that are very much so carrying the burden of depression and pain on the inside. And so what happens is people don't assume that we feel and that we have the capacity to be depressed. And so they're like, oh, you always upbeat, you always encouraging somebody, you always smiling. And that you know, that can be a facade. For myself, I know I suppressed a lot. I disassociated a lot from what I was feeling in order for me to try to just kind of get through, and depending on what needs to be done, the objective, and how much of the load that you're carrying, that may take place. So let me know, what you guys think about that, so I can have an idea of, if you following me on that. But I think it's important to talk about it. You may see people lash out. So I've talked about the solemn, the sadness. Some people cry. Some people turn to coping mechanisms that are not healthy. That's going to look like substance abuse of some sort. It could be drugs. It could be alcohol. It could even be shopping. It could be overeating. So it could be a sex addiction. It could be a lot of different things. But I think that there's no need to be coy about it. There's no need to be ashamed about it, or we darn sure not going to condemn. I mean, it's just what it is. And so it's upon us to kind of have an idea of some coping mechanisms. And also, if you choose to go about, seeking a doctor, may it be a therapist or an actual doctor who can prescribe, some type of medication for it. That's up to you. I can tell you I've done all of those routes. And for me, the best thing to do is to create a new pattern of shifting the way I thought about things, and so that I could not necessarily become dependent on a type of drug. Now, if the doctor is responsible, they're not going to allow you to take it for a long period of time anyway. There are some that are irresponsible because they make drug money off of pharmaceuticals, so I'm just going to put that out there. But know that you have tools at your disposal that do not require medical intervention. And it can be simple things like sunlight, changing your diet, exercising, which all seems like, I'm going to tell you, a huge task when you're depressed. You don't want to get out of bed. Don't tell me I want to work out, because that's the last thing I want to do. I don't even want to walk some days. And by the time I finish my day, I darn sure don't want to exercise. So I have been there too. And I will say to you this. One particular time, hey, Pauline, thank you for the birthday wish. One particular time I was at a point where I could not do that. Like I couldn't get out of bed. I also wasn't able to sleep. That went on for quite some time. So imagine being depressed, not being able to sleep while you laying down or lounging, and also not having the will to get up and actually do anything about it, let alone take a walk. Or anything like that. So at one point I had to get outside of my own head, because my focus now at this point is more direct focus as opposed to scattered focus. And that was a lot of my problem, because it was a lot of internal healing that needed to take place. So until I got to that step, what I ended up doing was just listening to people who are inspirational speakers, if you will, motivational, whatever, outside of myself. And I would just let them play. And the reason why I would do that is because it would allow me to hear something outside of the story or what I was hearing in my head. And so I say that to say sometimes you can't even get outside your head, let alone to encourage yourself. So that was a tactic that I did use. I couldn't get outside of my own head. It was just that bad, and it was that dark, and it was that heavy. And some people succumb to it and commit suicide or death by suicide. A lot of people have, and we will see a lot more people take place. Some people just no longer have the will to fight. Sometimes you're in your head and you think, you're like, it would sure be a lot less, pain I'm feeling if I just go ahead and be here no more. And if you are one of those people who have never experienced that, let me tell you, I'm happy for you. I hope that you never do. And to those people that do, I think you know what I'm talking about, and whatever it is that you did to come on the side of that, maybe you can understand. Know that one of the things that I also had to do was limit my amount of social media, because you can, the way the algorithms work, depending on what you're watching, you're going to get more of that content. And at any given point, you can look out there and see some level of negativity, but sometimes you have to search for some of the other things. And we have to be very mindful that sometimes, depending on the content, you can get a certain rise in dopamine levels, and you have to be very careful. So just like, certain foods increase your, your dopamine and your serotonin because it's a feel good. Having some, what's the word I'm looking for? When you're almost addicted to, so to speak, to some level of forms of negativity, can also be addicting. So you want to be very mindful of that. And you may not even see it like that, but to see certain things kind of do that, and it's a brain thing, it's a brain functionality. No, I'm not a doctor, just something I experienced, so I'm going to talk about it. So we have to be mindful of that. So just be, careful with the kind of content you let into yourself. And the idea is just to establish, a pattern of changing what they call cognitive behavioral changes. And it takes time. And it's something that I had to experiment with, because certain things that other people do did not work for me. It was a period of time that I was heavily into working out. I felt great, and a lot of the things I still continue to suppress. However, if you don't, if you suppress it and don't confess it, it will at some point come about. So for me, the healing journey was not linear. It didn't look like this. It didn't look like that. It looked like what it needed for me in order for me to get me to a position, where I'm a whole lot better. So it doesn't look like one thing or another. It's just one of those things that if you can, figure out what's the best thing for you based on what you like to do, then establishing like healthy coping behaviors, then, consistently continue to do those so that you establish some, elevated natural causes of dopamine levels. And if you happen to be taking medication, just be mindful of how long, and also being able to shift, your diet and exercise of some sort, because it ain't got to look like the gym. It ain't got to look like some of this stuff out there, because some of this stuff make you feel like, God, dog, I ain't doing that. Yeah, I'm at a point right now, the stuff I used to do when I was like 35, 36, I'm not doing that. I'll do some other form of it, but I'm not doing that. So I've had to increase it to something else different. Hey, Victor. Hey, Andre. Hey, Thornton. Hello, Jonathan. Let me read this to you. So my daughter dealt with this issue within her freshman year, and 3 adolescent facilities later, she was able to graduate from high school in February and has realized her potential in life. I'm very happy to hear that. And that's another thing. Be mindful of, like, if your children are going off to college, especially freshmen, but also just during this pandemic and different things, because there's just a lot going on in the world, and people don't really necessarily know how to articulate what they're feeling. And because we're such a society where we kind of jump to judge and kind of put our input on things, people are less likely to speak about certain things. And I'm not talking about going out on a social media, because some people do that, and that's what you do. That's what you do. What it works for you. But some people don't, have that, I call it digital courage. So maybe they, have a circle that they can talk to. Now, if you don't have a circle, or your circle may be used to you being the strong one, because I see a lot of you say that you're the strong one. And I know that I have been that person. I would consider myself still to be that person, but I'm going to tell you this. The lesson that I learned was to be your own best advocate. And so that meant for me at one point, I had changed my number. I just had to disconnect. I absolutely had to for my survival. If I don't want to do something, I just don't do it. I just don't do it. There's been times I'm like, oh, I got to do this, and I need to, and I make sure I have a differentiating, line of demarcation on what I want to do and what I need to do and what I must do. But if I'm not, very clear about what it is that I want to do, if I want to be affiliated with something and so on and so forth, you make that call. but do that to make sure you take care of yourself and that you are healthy. And if you happen to be in the company of someone, a friend of yours, that is dealing with depression, think about the things that you may, see. Because some people have a lot of assets and a lot of money and great jobs, and people still think that they would not suffer from depression, and that is so far from the truth. I remember when I was incarcerated, and Robin Williams had, died by death by suicide, and I remember thinking, geez, like, they gave me a 20-year sentence, I would completely change places with him. But here's the thing, I don't know what he was dealing with. He was the funny guy. He, obviously had a lot of money. He had a lot of notoriety. He was in a lot of movies, and yet he, succumbed to it. So we can't always assume that because everybody has everything that we wish we had, all the latest this, the purses, the cars, and that's all fine to have. I'm not saying it is not, but it is not a substitute for, being joyful, and know that happiness is definitely a moving target. The things that made me happy in my 20s and in my 30s are certainly different than where I am. Thank you all, because I turned 40 on Monday, so I guess I've joined the 40 club. So thank you guys. Sylvia Brown, wow, that's powerful. Thank you. Knowing you have the choice to do something or not saying no. Let me tell you, I've watched people who say no, not just because, they enjoy it, not because they can, but because they know their capacity. And I think in the society where it's like, go hard or go home, or, never not doing this, or never not working, never not hustling, grind. I'm not saying all that does not have its place, because I believe the discipline to be able to do those things is phenomenal. But be also disciplined to take care of yourself. Be also disciplined to be your best advocate, and be also disciplined to know when you need rest and to pull back. I mean, like, the idea is balance. That's one of the things that I think up until this point I'm getting back together. When I was in my early 20s and 30s, I was into IT. IT is very black and white. You put this in, this is the result. And I enjoyed it. I'm really good at it even still. And so for me, there was a habit of the way that I functioned that allowed for me to get things completed. I had goals, I got them done. I didn't need to write it down. I didn't do anything. Fast forward to me going through everything I went through, and then sitting in a prison doing, pretty much nothing for all day, depending on, once you moved out of detention and into the Department of Corrections in a actual prison is a different type of living. It's a different type of an environment, and it turned my world upside down. So it was very hard for me to figure out once I got home what was my next step, and that just was an arduous task. But also during that time, in order for me to survive, I literally shut off all connection to Marissa, and for the most part, any real connection to the outside world. And so once I got home, because I had done that for so many years, I had a really hard time struggling in even relationships, friendships, family type of bonds, of how to figure that out. I did go to therapy to help. Thank you, Joshua. I did go to therapy to help. That was my choice. If you can get it, and you can are able to have access to it, by all means. If you work with a company, I think I put a post up, go through employee EAP, Employee Assistance Program, to be able to get that assistance. It's a few, depends on what the coverage is with the company, but you at least can get that jump start. But I always encourage people to do what is necessary for you first, because without you, then what it is that your purpose to do, or what the higher power, whatever you call it, I like to call them God, has you here for, you can't fulfill that because there's no balance, So whatever that looks like, to you, if it's sports, if it's reading, if it's journaling, if it's, listening to music, if it's creating, whatever it is, it doesn't have to look like any one thing. Give it a shot. And one of the things I also want to say is support one another, I look at people like, okay, so we'll give you an example. So y'all all know, if you don't know, you can look it up. our dear brother Andrew Gillum, and to see his journey. And all of that is definitely a means for some form of depression, but there's always a backstory. And all I'm just basically saying is using him as an example is that you just never know what people are going through, and what people are holding in and internally. And while it's so easy, for us to kind of dissect the things that we can see from a very superficial surface, there's a whole lot more deeper things going on. And because a person can speak well, be a go-getter, carry themselves well, have access, have stardom, it does not exempt people from dealing with grief. And there's several different stages in grief. And so I brought him up to also bring up our dear sister Cardi and brother Offset. Whatever it is, it's still an opportunity for people to kind of lash at and make opinions. And people are probably, hey, you're a star, I guess you're kind of open to that, but it doesn't remove them from being people. And I can only imagine in the one time in my life when I had cameras on my stuff, it was and being a very private person, and not to even compare me to these people. It is extremely difficult to grieve and mourn and cope and heal in that spotlight. And so I could only imagine, regardless of how a fluke we may think there it is, and what capacity or how it should have looked like, or what didn't or didn't happen, or maybe she should have known better. Let me tell you, any loss is a loss. Even somebody you can't stand, if they you break up, it's a grieving process. You break up, you divorce, somebody loses their life too short, whatever the case may be. It's a lot of grief out there. And so be open to the fact that people may be irritable, and people may lash out, and people may make decisions that are not healthy ones in an attempt to cope with something, and they use unhealthy methods. And so when those things happen, we hope that we can hold each other community in some way to support one another, because the pendulum swings both ways. It just does, and nobody escapes karma. We just all pray for mercy when it comes back. So that's just, hey Tony, I know this is your thing, so I wanted to make sure we talk about that. Tony Maserati, thank you for joining. Know that people may become flaky too. I'm gonna tell you, I was kind of at this point. I got invited to some things, not where I had to show up, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go, and then I just couldn't go. I just could not go, and it was dear people that I cared about and I loved, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. So you may see people, and they be like, man, they flaking out. They said a few elders that I can reach out to. And I just said, listen, let's form, we could actually get together. And I was like, hey, because some stuff we just can't pray away, but we, as an added precaution, I did get with them and was like, listen, I just need y'all to pray with me, and they did, and they kept me lifted up in prayer. And honestly, it seemed like things got a whole lot worse before it got better. It was hard. It was very, very hard. And people that love you, that are around you, hate to see you going through it, because there's really nothing they can do about it. I just say, reach out, even put it on your calendar if to remember, because lives happen. We get to doing things and we may forget, and just reach out, send a note. You didn't let them know they didn't have to go, respond. I'm just thinking about you, and I hope that you're okay. These things are very important when somebody is going, through a very difficult time. And sometimes you really don't know what to say. Sometimes as a friend, you really don't know, whether or not to reach out. You don't know what to say. It may be difficult for you. I'm an empath, so, that is very difficult for me to actually see somebody suffering or hear about it. But I know how to handle it now, that I'm able to be aware that I am an empath, how to deal with the level of energy that I'm able to pick up even far away, definitely in close proximity, and especially about the people that I'm in connection with. So, that's one of those things that I want to share with you all. Y'all be patient with me because for whatever reason, my Facebook just crapped out. Like, I don't know what happened to it. So I don't even know if I'm still on at this point. I hope that I am. And I'm just going to keep rolling. So that was just it. I was looking to see if you all had any comments about it, so I can read a couple of them. I know one of the things that I did was I slept late when I did sleep, and I cried a whole lot. I did. I was a big old crybaby. I cried a whole lot. So that was just one of my ways of dealing with it. Some people may come off aggressive. So, be mindful if it's somebody who isn't ordinarily aggressive, that they may be, especially if something has taken place that you're aware of, even if you're not, I'm going to ask that you lead with compassion. But if you can't, like, try not to make it worse, because it just may not be about you. And if in fact you find out that it is, govern yourself accordingly. But, during those times, especially specifically now, it takes a special person to kind of bear the burden with people, especially when they're going through the depression. And we definitely don't want to agitate it and make it worse by, telling people what you got to be, what you got to be sad about, or or the favorite one is look at somebody that always got it worse than you. When you depressed, you don't give a damn who got it worse than you. You just right now you're in the thick of what you feel, and it helps now because I do a gratitude every day. I started last year. And it could be something as simple as, I am so glad that I have all my toes. You'd be surprised some of the stuff that I'm like, I just, I don't care. But I do that to give myself some level of gratitude, especially when there's a lot of things to complain about, I don't think complaining is a bad thing. I think if you become overly consumed with it, I think that's probably the problem. But if you are able to look at it and shift your mind about it, it helps. And it doesn't last always. And that's the thing about suicide. It's such a permanent fix to a temporary situation. But when you're in it, I tell you, it feels like forever. You wake up with it if you do sleep. You go to bed with it at some point. And that's why sometimes medication it can be helpful. Also, some of the foods that help increase dopamine or serotonin are like nuts and bananas and like almonds and walnuts, fish, music. That's not a food, but on to activities. So I play a lot of music. I don't always watch a lot of TV, and sometimes when I do have the TV on, I just play music. So music that makes me happy, or music that makes me want to juke a little bit. And these are things I had to switch to kind of help with me, because at one point I got burnt out on writing and journaling. Because I'm writing so much other things, I had to stay away from that. But just something to think about, as we move forward. I would ask for you, this is kind of like my call to you, is to really reach out to somebody that you know of that may have made a shift and you can see it. And, just check on them and put it on your calendar. We got too many devices on your phone, a little reminder just to kind of check on them. Mostly, make sure that if you're able to be a sounding board, by all means, listen. Sometimes people are not looking for advice. They're not looking for you to fix the problem. They're not even looking for a suggestion. I've also sent certain encouraging things to people at their leisure. Whenever they want to look at it, they can. Little notes here and there, all of those things. Let me tell you, in life, sometimes it's the little things, because love is in the details. So, I'm big on flowers. I didn't want anything for my 40th birthday but to do nothing and enjoy the flowers that I got. And I love flowers. I didn't want to do nothing. I mean, even if it wasn't a pandemic, I wouldn't be turning up. I'm just so happy in a different type of way at this point in my life, when I realized that it would have been about 5 million minutes of me into a 20-year sentence. And so I just have a different, mindset on things. So I just wanted to share that with y'all. All right, Byron Baker, I love to learn myself dealing with alcoholism, and that's just like liquid suicide. But once you start to love yourself, that just a drip recovery from the topic that you're on about suicide, just so many shapes and forms of suicide. So here's the thing about alcoholism. It is a disease, and it is real, and it is a coping mechanism that is not necessarily healthy. And it is very, very, very difficult to do on your own. Some people have been able to do it. I've seen people on Facebook, shout out to you, that have been able to go cold turkey, right on. Some people are not. And if you have the ability to join a program of some sort, I would suggest definitely be able to do it. And take advantage of the time in your insurance if you have it, because now that, you know, people, certain demographics experiencing, the opioid crisis, insurance companies are open to that. A lot of people with, abusing opioids are in rehab. And so, of course, alcohol is one of them. If you can get in, your insurance will cover it. Just look it up. But I just wanted to share that. I think it's important to talk about that, again, mental health and mental wealth and mental health awareness, and depression being a part of that. It definitely is. I think people just look at it as a sadness, but it is so much bigger than that. It does affect your mental, and I know that I've experienced it. So anything I said is definitely not from a clinical position. Let me just say that. I think I said it at the beginning, but it's from experience. And so I want you to know that I care. I do, and I don't say this because it's cute to get on a video and say it. I do, and I hope that you are really checking in from your mental, from your emotional, your psychological, and your physical. Okay, and if you whatever you feel right in your gut, a way to get that out. Seek out opportunities and ways, and give it a try. And if you're like, I don't want to do this, don't do it. Try something that works for you, and just one day at a time. Sometimes it's 1 hour at a time. Sometimes it's 1 minute at a time, and sometimes it's 1 second at a time. I promise you, I've been there, and thank God I'm okay. So I hope that you guys, I hope this was helpful. So make sure we just reach out to somebody and share it to somebody. Maybe they find it interesting. And thank you all for the birthday wishes, and thank you for joining me. Peace out.